Welcome back, my friends, to the InObscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal and place them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should-have-beens. My name is Kevin Williams, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Robert Harrison.
Yo, I'm ready to dig something up.
Man, it's been a while.
Yeah, I'm a little rusty.
It's been a while. What have you been doing since last year? Last decade.
Last year, yeah. We had a few parties here, pretty good New Year's blowout. It's quality time in the hot tub, and a lot of time in my workshop, which is just the best thing in the world, building stuff that has no reason to be built.
Can you elaborate on anything you've done lately?
That we can say legally? Yeah, I mean, I've been...
Are there illegal things you've built?
Oh, yeah. Those
Awesome.
things we don't talk about. Yeah, we don't. I'm on a watch list because of that. I learned my lesson a couple of years ago. We're working on some things for outdoors, which is the perfect time in the winter to be working on outdoor projects. Just some things around the firehouse where it's a vintage industrial time portal that I pulled out of a junkyard and repurposing it for my garden gates. And so it doesn't really work that well. It only takes you back in time like 3 seconds. So it's just kind of a novelty.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to try that out later. We'll have to try that out later.
See, you're stuck again.
Oh,
you got to slap
stuck
it.
in the loop.
Yeah, you got to slap it on the side there. See, it'll kick back in.
All right, cool. Well, hey, man, it's been last year since we've talked. Robert had a kind of monumental birthday. It's the last time we talked.
Turned 30 years. Oh, no. 40. No. What was it?
I think it was a 5-0.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Happy birthday again, man.
Thank you.
It's a monumental feat.
We took Moose, the band van, out for another ride. It still just hangs in there and keeps going. I think the best part was valet parking the band van.
Now, I think we've teased a couple of times the story of Moose, and maybe we'll save that made-up story, or I mean, the somewhat fictional story for later.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Moose a little bit, because we have referenced it, but I don't think we've ever really described what this behemoth that is on wheels, that is named Moose. I don't think we've ever talked about it. Give us a little background on this behemoth.
Moose is a 1982 Ford Econoline extended super wagon with a handicap lift on the back, which is the whole reason I was looking at some junk vans literally in a junkyard, and the guy opened the back of this and said, "I don't know if you want this. It's got this lift on it." And I immediately thought of our rolling road cases, which fit on the lift perfectly.
Yeah, so at the time, Robert and I were in a band called Big Jack Pneumatic, and we had two versions of that band. But the second version of the band, which was what I consider the true version of the band, the great version of the band, I had moved over to bass from drums, and we got Kent Oberle, who was on the podcast 2 episodes ago. He was our drummer. He had just come in from Illinois. And
he's cringing right now.
He's cringing. And then we had Mr. Brandon Steele on keyboards, who is now, he's the only one of us who is famous, I should say.
I'm infamous. He's famous.
Right. Yeah. And Kent does pretty well for himself, but not like Brandon. Brandon's in a band called Blackberry Smoke, for those of you who've heard of that band. They're a international touring band, done great things, and Brandon's the keyboardist in that band. Anyway, there were the 4 of us, and we figured out a way that we could get all of Kent's drums. He had 3 rolling road cases, which, if you're not familiar, it's basically just huge luggage cases, or cases that you would see maybe huge bands would have, like lighting rigs or things like that in these cases. And anyway, we figured out a way to fit all of the drums, the guitars we stacked on top. We fit all the keyboards inside them, and then any other miscellaneous things that we had. I think we even put an amp or 2 in there, and we figured out a way that we could just roll everything into the venues, and we didn't have to carry a thing, because we put the guitar cases and any amps that were left over on top of the cases. And so we would show up at venues and literally roll in 3 cases and be done, while all these other bands are lugging all their gear in. It was beautiful.
They were honestly jealous. That's the only time people have been jealous of me, and it's because my van had a handicap lift. That was it.
And
but
that
it
was the icing
perfect.
on the cake, right? So you found this van
Yeah.
that looked god-awful, but it had a handicap lift in the back. So we would basically just roll those cases on one at a time. We wouldn't even have to lift them. We just put the lift up.
You could
slide
hold
them
your
in.
beer. Hold your beer.
Hold a beer and
push
load
a
in.
button and watch your cases rise up. And with one hand, you pushed them in the van, and then you kind of looked over at the other guys in the other bands and go, "Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just did that."
That was kind of our, aside from the music that we played, that was kind of our claim to fame. Those are the guys with the awesome van.
It probably was the best band van. I don't know about regionally, but in Atlanta, I'm pretty confident that was the best band van. And we still have it. It still runs. I got it out of a junkyard, and I think within a month, I had to put a new motor in it. And we went up to Illinois, and and we toured.
Guys.
This van had been sitting in a junkyard, and we had no idea if we were going to make it back. But I knew the motor was good, but everything else, the brake steering, anything else was questionable. Going over the mountain passes in Tennessee and places like that, it was just an act of faith to get in this van, and it was sketchy. We got pulled over. Of course, this is around September 11th in that era, and we would get pulled over at 2:00 in the morning just because we were 4 guys in a blacked out van. And on top of that, we thought it'd be cool to paint this van spray paint black, and it took 11 cans of Rust-Oleum and a case of beer to paint the van. You and I
we had a good time.
We didn't even mask off the windows. We just kind of sprayed around them, and it looked horrible.
We were that good.
We were that good. So years later, I got 2 visits by the cops for doing nothing other than sitting in that van, like waiting for somebody to show up somewhere, and somebody would call the cops on me. So it's just the van has a lot of stories. It broke down a couple of times. There's a couple of times where it was sick, but it still made it home at like 20 miles an hour. But we had to be towed once. And then other than that, though, it's just, we could do a whole podcast on that. So
if I remember correctly, didn't we put Berber carpet in it?
It had Berber carpet, yes.
That was so 2000.
The most disgusting thing was when I took the Berber carpet out of it about 10 years later. Yeah. We found a lot of Brandon in there. I don't know much of Kent, but guitar picks and things. Yeah, it was a hazmat site.
So anyway, that's the story of Moose. Now, the reason... do you know the reason that the van got named Moose?
Originally, it was kind of a pale blue, and it was the Blue Moose. And I don't remember who came up with that.
So I do, because I came up with it.
Okay.
So Moose was, in college, there was a guy who had a girlfriend, a guy that I knew, that had a girlfriend, and I can't remember why. I think maybe she just had like a kind of a horsey, moosey face.
Bless her heart.
And this is horrible. But behind his back, we were like, "Hey, there's what's his name in Moose." We used to call her Moose.
So she was homely.
Yeah, She was a little larger, and she was
sturdy. She was sturdy. Girl. She was sturdy.
But anyway, it was not the nicest thing I could ever say, but we were 19 and we were dumb. So anyway,
but the van
I carried that. I carried that with me, and when I saw the van,
it was pretty homely. Yeah, it was pretty homely. I did not go for looks. I went for maximum cubic square footage, and I think back then, this was 15, 17, 18 years ago, that was kind of the standard band van, was a Ford Econoline. I know a lot of bands back then spent a lot of time on the road in a Ford Econoline. So there should be kind of a rock and roll band van hall of fame to show off some of the hellholes that people spend a lot of time in.
Now they're all riding around in electric cars.
Oh, God, yeah. They're all Teslas and stuff. Tesla vans.
Vans don't carry amps anymore.
No, it's all
they
pods.
Just plug in. Anyway, before we get going too far, I do want to mention that you should go visit us at InObscuria.com. You should check us out on all the social sites. I've been trying to post a couple times a week, and would love to get comments on, what you think of the selections that were being played, or that are being played, and any recommendations that you might have as well, or things that you want to hear. So let us know. Reach out to us. We'd love to communicate with you. Brad Rustovan does a great job every week. He lets me know. He pretty much goes through everything that we play and says what he liked and what he didn't. Brad's a really cool guy. So thanks, Brad, for sending us the comments. All right, so I do want to also say there's some podcasts that you need to go listen to, and I'm going to tell you what those are. The Dummy Room, Pod of Thunder, Decibel Geek, Podcast Rock City, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, Rock Strikes 10, History Science Theater, the podcast The Kiss Room, and the I Love It Loudcast. So go check those out. And also check out Henry and Heidi. Mr. Henry Rollins has a great podcast. They don't put them out that often. Anyway, go check that out. So let's get down to the business at hand. It's been a couple of weeks. So I was in Nashville doing some recording, and I'd like to report that went really well with Kent and Elizabeth, and I had them on the program to have a very bizarre discussion of goth music that's kind of pop goth mixed with this Illinois punk metal. Weird episode, but I think it came out all right, and it was fun to have those two on the program. So thanks again to them for doing that with me after a long day of recording, and then we had to get up and do it again. But it's going to come out really well. I'm hoping that we get to release this stuff in just a few months. We did just get notification that Mr. Rachel Bolin from Skid Row is going to lay down some vocals on one of the tracks.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. We went and cut a bunch of vocals yesterday, so I did all my vocals, so I'm completely done with the recording. Now we're just waiting on Rachel, and I think there's a few other folks that are going to add some guest vocal spots in Nashville, so that should be really cool. The other thing is, last week I was not planning on doing a podcast, but I was just sitting around on vacation in Florida, freezing my ass off, which doesn't make sense to say, but that's the truth.
It does get cold in Florida. You were in the wrong part of Florida.
I was, apparently. I mean, it was nice, but it was cold. So my teeth were chattering, but I tried to do a podcast, and if you think it sounds weird, if you listen to that episode 10, it's because my teeth are chattering, and two, I was being very quiet because I was my family were upstairs asleep. I was doing it about midnight, and I was sitting outside and on the balcony, so there were other folks that could have heard me. So I was trying to be very quiet. So if the sound's a little off, that's why. Okay, so let's go in. Robert's back. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do it the way that we normally do it. And what I usually do is every week I try to reach out to the ghost, to the spirits, to the other world to figure out what we're going to talk about this week. What I did this week was I went on Google and looked for different ways of reaching the other world. And there was something about turning stones. Have you ever heard of this? In some cultures,
Those are Rolling Stones. It's a band. They've been around a while.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you went to a rabbit hole and clicked on the wrong link.
Damn. Anyway.
Turning stones?
Turning stones. So you turn the stones over, and somehow,
I've never heard of that.
A seer of visions can turn stones over and read them. I tried it. It didn't work. I turned stones for about an hour. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of sand in Florida. There's not a lot of stones. That's where I'm from. I know that.
You know what? They weren't even stones. You're right. They were probably like sand dollars or something like that, weren't they?
Seashells, yeah.
Seashells. Damn it. See, I need you for these things. I don't. You're wise in the way of the world.
I got some weird friends, and it really helps to connect with those kind of things. So just let me know. I'll put the word out and get some really good, interesting seance type stuff going on.
All right, good. Well, okay, so that didn't work. So I was on the beach, and there were a bunch of dudes out there who had been surfing, and I noticed they were they were seeing spirits because they were sitting around a campfire and they were passing something around. There was a lot of smoke, so I went over and hung out with them for a little bit, and I did see something. Then I think I did reach out. Something in this smoke that I was involved in. I'm not sure what it was. It smelled really good though. Not sure what
definitely
it
wasn't patchouli then. Okay.
Yeah, so it didn't take too long, and I was like, you know what? We're going to talk about stoner metal.
Nice.
Yep. So this week is Headstones, Inhalin Stoner Metal.
I'm excited. This is good.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what stoner metal is, obviously you're not stoned. Actually, what it is, so it kind of takes that whole 60s psychedelic Jimi Hendrix kind of vibe. Definitely involves cannabis at some point, but it takes that psychedelic vibe. It takes sludgy metal, doom metal. It takes what Black Sabbath started in the early 70s, and it kind of mixes it all together into, I guess, a sound that's kind of bass heavy, like a low end kind of sound. Even the guitars are kind of chuggy. But if I think about where it really came from, it's probably Sabbath mixed with Hendrix. And then as you moved into the 80s, you had bands like Motorhead that they never had that bassy tone, but they definitely had that kind of stoner vibe to them. And then coming into the 90s, there was something called desert rock.
Okay, that's a new one.
Which, there's a band called Caius.
Yeah.
So you know Josh Homme. He's
Yeah.
he's in the band now called Queens of the Stone Age. His original band was Caius, and there were a whole bunch of groups. Fu Manchu being one, Sleep is another one. And they kind of had this thing called desert rock, and it was basically kind of metal, but it was kind of jammy. And, it was one of those things where you get stoned and you play for hours. And it's just heavy and kind of drony. And so I think all of that mixed together, if I think about other retro bands that make this music what it is, Blue Cheer, if you know who Blue Cheer is, Blue Oyster Cult, Hawkwind, all that kind of psychedelic, heavy, not always fast-paced, as you would think of Motorhead's a little fast-paced, but
they've
a lot
got
of the
some
others
more just mid-tempo, just droning.
But kind of drony, kind of chuggy. Yeah. It can be fast as well, but that all that mixed together to make what we know today is stoner metal, and it's really gained momentum over the past 10 or 12 years. There's a ton of bands, and it's one of my favorite genres. Actually, I think it's just good music, and I think one of the characteristics, like I said, was you get kind of a bassier tone. And the bass guitar is usually pretty heavily distorted, so you get this real fuzzy. Anyway, that's what stoner metal is. And so what I thought I'd do is spin some bands that you may not have heard of. There are a bunch of bands who have, like I mentioned, Fu Manchu and Caius. They've had some fame. Queens of the Stone Age obviously did really well. A lot of people know who Clutch is. Clutch was a stoner metal band for sure. Corrosion of Conformity started off as a punk band, but really became a stoner metal band. So there are not a lot of on the charts big stoner metal acts, but there's some bands that you know. So I'm going to try to play some of those that you may not know. So the first one up for you is a band called ASG.
Yeah,
not familiar. So they are originally were called All Systems Go. And apparently there was another band called All Systems Go, so they just shortened it to ASG. Now they've since said, it's not All Systems Go. It actually stands for Amplification of Self-Gratification.
Sure, yeah.
So I think ASG is probably the better term for it. But they're from Wilmington, North Carolina. And a lot of these groups actually are kind of come from the southeast or southern states if they're not from California. It seems like there's a West Coast and then a southeastern kind of thing going on with most of these bands because they get kind of that swampy sound in the South at least. So this is a band from Wilmington, North Carolina, and they got their start on doing kind of the surf skate scene, being from Wilmington, which is a coastal town. There is surfing there actually. But they were signed to Volcom, which is a surf and skate company. They got signed to Volcom Entertainment, and they released a few of their albums on that. So they kind of mix punk rock, southern rock, stoner rock, and metal, and they have a lot of placements on skate and surf media, so videos and various ads and things like that. They've had a lot of placements there. To date, they have released 7 albums, and they're still together. They're kind of sporadic with their releases. I think their last release was a couple of years ago, so they're probably due. And they've toured with bands like Motorhead, Saviors, Helmet, Graveyard, Orange Goblin, High on Fire, and a lot of these bands are also stoner metal bands. And probably the only one that you really recognize out of those would be Motorhead and Helmet. But the song I'm going to play is called The Dull Blade, and this is off of the album that I found them first on, which is called Win Us Over, which is a great album. This song was actually featured on a skateboarding video game called Skate 2 back in 2007. So I'm going to spin ASG, The Dull Blade from Win Us Over.
Between us, making to the eyes of the
of a sudden. It just kind of, okay, we're done.
It was like an exploration in, if you want to be a metal band, here's all the types of things you need to do.
They hit all the fine points. One thing I've noticed with stoner rock that I like is the bass players tend to play like guitar players. They've got a groove going that's really similar to the guitar. They're not trying to do a counter rhythm or anything like that, but it just adds, like you were talking about, that heaviness when the guitar and the bass are kind of doing the same rhythm, the same melody, real tight. And I like also like the fact that they give you an extra minute and a half in the song. So, you got a good groove going. Most songs are over in 3.5 minutes. And you're like, oh, well, that was a good song. But hey, let's give you an extra minute, extra 2 minutes. And it was good.
How'd you like that breakdown?
Yeah. And
the breakdown makes the song to me.
You've got the dueling guitar, the harmonies. I don't know if it's just overdubbed or if there's two guitars in the band.
I believe there are two guitars.
Yeah, and I'm always going to be a fan of that. From the Southern rock days, the Allman Brothers and Skinner, up to Iron Maiden and the newest versions, whoever that may be. But I think your friend and our friend Elizabeth once coined the phrase that harmonies are audible crack to the listener, and because it's very pleasing to our ears, and we mostly think of that as vocal harmonies, but guitar harmonies like that, it always makes me perk up just a little bit and listen even closer.
Oh yeah, and if you want to go back and explore where guitarmonies came from, think of
why did you just now say that? All these years I've known you.
Oh, guitarmonies?
Yeah,
that's a Jeremy Zamora.
I could have been using that all these years, and I just now learned that.
No, guitarmonies, Thin Lizzy. You have to go back to Thin Lizzy and Judas Priest. I mean,
yeah, there's so many
really
of those.
Pioneered that, but I love that they pulled that into this. And there's another band, the last band I'm going to play today, really goes down that Thin Lizzy path with their stoner metal, which I love. I'm a big Thin Lizzy fan as well, but they don't belong on this podcast because I think everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, they're
Most
not
people do, at least.
Quite obscure.
One of the things I did want to bring up was, I guess last year I came over and before we were podcasting, we just sort of sat around and we listened to music one night. I think we were supposed to be playing, but instead we listened to a newer version of The Wall that came out last year.
That's still in rotation
called The Wall Redux. Well, ASG are the band on The Wall Redux. They're the band that plays Mother. That's ASG. And it's more of a country, more of a southern vibe.
Yeah, it does not sound like what you just played.
Like this,
no, not at all.
They have such a range of what they can do, and they've matured over the years. I think they're a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more refined now, where it's not just punch you in the face. But I love to punch you in the face. They kind of remind me, there's a host of bands from Savannah, Georgia, Baroness being probably the most famous one. They remind me of Baroness a little bit. And Baroness, I would have played them on here, but they're not obscure anymore. They're selling out places and playing huge festivals in Europe. So I don't think they quite make the grade for.
They graduated.
They've graduated.
Oh, we're proud parents.
I remember seeing them at a small venue way back when. So I've never seen ASG. It's a band that I really want to see live, but I really dig them. I think it's a good way to kick off the Stoner Metal episode this week. And the next band is one that I was going to play last week. In last week's episode, I played bands from the last decade that had a major impact on me. And this band called Red Fang was one of those bands. They just didn't quite make the cut. I didn't want to have a 3-hour episode, so I had to cut some bands out.
It was 2 o'clock in the morning. You had all the time in the world.
Yeah, and then I mixed until 4 or 5. But anyway, this band Red Fang, they have 4 albums since 2009. So a couple of their albums have actually cracked the Billboard Top 200. They're probably the most not obscure band that I'm going to play today. Right, that's a good way of saying it, I guess. We'll make up another word.
Yes.
But I still wanted to play them because I think they deserve their due, and I think they should be bigger than they are. They can get really heavy, so they're not always just groove-oriented stoner metal. They can get really nasty and really heavy, and even kind of screamy. But I saw them probably 3 years ago, and they just blew me away live. I saw them on a tour with 3 or 4 other metal groups, and I wasn't expecting anything, and they just blew me away. I'd never heard of them, and I went back and got all of their albums, and I'm going to play something from their second album, and that came out in 2011, called Murder in the Mountains. Great release from them, and the song's called Wires.
bet that drummer sleeps really well after he plays that song because he just gives it everything he could possibly throw at that drum set and just kills it. I mean,
kind of reminds me of Mastodon. If you've ever listened to Mastodon, same thing. It's just drums, just
a wall of drums, just hitting anything and everything, and then spitting on the guitar player just for added effect.
But never missing the beat.
Never missing a beat. I guess you're not going to have stoner rock without getting compared to, I mean, Queens of the Stone Age throughout the song, and then the breakdown was very Sabbathy, very doomy. It was evil. I was getting a little nervous there that it was just going to hell in a handbasket, and then it came back into just good old-fashioned stoner rock. But
which is the genre that this, a lot of this came from, which is doom. That's another genre.
Yeah, it just
which is really
walks that line perfectly.
Paced. And this had that very slow, chuggy, kind of grindy. If you're stoned, this
nothing better.
Perfect.
But the vocals aren't over the top like a lot of metal that you'll hear that had that evil quality to it. But it's more just doom.
They can go there. This is one of the songs that they don't, and I like it better when they don't go there. I like it better when this guy sings.
Yeah,
but they can get a little screamy at times. So they're kind of all over the board with within their albums. But I picked this song specifically because I thought it represented the genre really well, but also just because the vocals were more sung. So the next band that I'm going to play kind of straddles the genre a little bit. I don't know that other people would put them in this genre, but I do. I just think they belong here. It's a band from the UK. I saw play with Royal Blood, who I had on last week's episode, and this band opened for Royal Blood. I've actually known of this band for years. Discovered them doing one of my searches on Amazon. It came up as one of those, if you like this, you will like this. Suggested sales always get me. But this is a band called Turbowolf. Again, a UK band, so they're coming at it from a different angle. They're very much on the psychedelic side of the spectrum, more so than the doom. But they have their bass player, her bass tone is almost electronic-like. Her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, I think this is the only female in the bands that I have this week. But anyway, her bass tone is very much almost keyboardy. I don't know what effects she's running it through, but so it gives it a really low kind of synth vibe to it, which again is not, you wouldn't consider that as part of stoner metal, but I think when you hear it, you'll think it works as well. And I was kind of struggling on how I was going to describe this band. I actually came across a review of theirs that I thought was really good, so I'm just going to read how this particular reviewer described them. A tasty, thick soup of distorted boogie rock, psychedelic weirdness, and snarling punk attitude.
Boogie soup?
Boogie soup.
Boogie soup.
I love it.
Okay.
Now, when I saw these guys live, it was awesome because the lead singer, he looks like Frank Zappa reincarnated. I mean, he looks just...
Does he have the stash?
He has the stash, a little bit of goatee, and the crazy kind of black hair and the eyes that just peer right through you and the big nose.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like Frank Zappa was standing on stage, and he was wearing not a leisure suit, but something like that with white boots. Very 60s, 70s looking, and just had it. He was real quirky on stage and had crazy little Mick Jagger dances. So it was an odd combination. I just loved it. And they ran over really well with the Royal Blood crowd, two UK bands playing together in the States when I saw them. So that was really cool. So again, I think I'm putting them in this category. You may not, but who cares?
I am convinced by the evidence that we are a species with amnesia. We have forgotten something of great importance from our own past.
And as I was mentioning earlier, I love how the bass is an instrument and stoner rock gets elevated to a more prominent position in the song. It's not just kind of background, and a lot of metal, it's hard to pick out the bass line. The guitars and the vocals are so out there. And with this, it's so heavy. And yeah, as you mentioned, the synth kind of effect it's got on, I think that still just fits in with the whole distorted guitar, distorted bass that really makes it stand out even more and gives it that depth to a song. And that's really heavy. And there's a couple of parts in there that almost in a way reminded me of Jack White, that if he could ever find a decent bass player, he could probably write some really good stoner rock. I could see him going on a side track and just letting it all hang out there instead of 2-minute songs.
It's the only reason I never quite got into the White Stripes. I'm like, I get it that you're a duo, but I need bass.
Yeah, to me, it also is just it's cool. And it was an interesting little palate cleanser for a while there after the really stupid music that came out in the 2000s with the rap metal and everything else that we'll get into in another show. But yeah, so this song right here is a good example that once again it's heavy, it's all over the map. There's no formula to it. It's just whatever they feel like doing. It's a little bit longer than your typical rock song, but it's fun to listen to for me. I enjoy it.
Cool. I'm glad you like that.
This is the kind of stuff that I listen to when I'm in the shop with a welder, grinder, torches, things like that. You got to have something heavy when you're working with actual metal, not music, but the material. And this is the kind of music that pierces through all the power tools, that gets me going, that keeps me in there for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So if you had to know, I know everybody's just dying to know what I listen to when I'm in my workshop. And this is the kind of stuff that I gravitate towards.
Yes, and I think I failed to mention that the name of the song was 12 Houses, and that was from their second album, Two Hands. Again, they've had 3 albums. That one was from 2015, and I saw them on the next tour that they did for the next album. So the next band is more of a back to home. Again, we're in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been in bands ourselves, and we know a lot of folks in other bands around the area. And I was in a band called The Swear for a while, and our last drummer, we had quite a few drummers, but one of our last, it was kind of a Spinal Tap moment, but one of our last drummers, Mr. Matt Finnick, a couple of years ago sent me a link to another band, another project that he was involved in. And this is a band from Columbia, South Carolina. He sent it to me. I immediately went and downloaded it and checked it out, and I loved it. And this band is called Space Coke. If you don't know, if you're a Cheech and Chong fan, you know what that's a reference to. In Cheech and Chong's next movie, they talk about Space Coke, which was this amazing cocaine from outer space. So this band is called Space Coke, and they put out several EPs. They're unsigned. They self-release. They've had 3 releases. If you want to go check them out on Bandcamp, it's Space Coke at Bandcamp. And they're fairly active. They play quite a bit in the South Carolina, Southeast area of the United States. This particular cut is called Hit the Ceiling, and the name of the album or the EP is Neil deGrasse High. So do you know Neil deGrasse?
Yes.
The
smart guy.
Astronomer guy.
Yeah.
And then deGrasse High was a TV show, a Canadian TV show back in the 80s, 90s. So this is Neil deGrasse High.
They get points for that.
They're witty. And then the guy who, I guess kind of the band leader, the guy who writes the music for Space Coke and is kind of the Space Coke leader, his name is Reno El Cheapo Gooch. So great name, dude. Love it. And so check out some Space Coke.
All right, that song gets the award for the fuzziest bass. I think there's a couple more songs coming up, but so far they take the cake.
It might be the fuzziest song.
None more fuzzy.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. We may have fuzzy, right?
Peak fuzzy.
I don't know. The last song was pretty fuzzy too.
Yeah, but that had a little synth quality. This was just nasty fuzz. It had been sitting in the fridge for 6 months. It was really fuzzy.
Yeah, those guys are brilliant. Space Coke from Columbia, South Carolina.
They sounded like they were having a lot of fun. I mean, the joke about the bass aside, that's fun music to play. You just don't give a rat's ass. You're just playing and having fun.
And I think that's what they're known for. So that came out in 2017. They had another release it was either last year or 2018. I think Matt, my friend Matt, is the drummer on that track. I believe he's moved on. He's no longer playing with the band. I think they have a new drummer now, but his drums are just phenomenal. The guy's just brilliant. I loved playing with that guy. So good. Matt, thanks for sending that to me. All right, so we're going to move into, speaking of fuzz, we're going to move into a band that had a film, actually. And the film was called a fuzzamentary. Good transition, Robert.
Nice.
Yeah,
I try.
This is a band from Sweden, actually, and I featured several bands from Sweden last week on the episode where I played bands from the last decade. That meant a lot to me. This band was also on the list and didn't make it last week, but they're here this week.
ABBA?
Sweden's very own ABBA. No, Sweden's very own Truckfighters. So they're considered desert rock as well. They went in the circles with the desert rock band, and that's I believe that's what the documentary is about, the Fuzzamentary. That came out in 2011, and it has interviews with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. So they were in that whole scene with those guys, and the film actually has it's not just a documentary. They kind of make it a little bit of a sci-fi thing because they transform into fuzz monsters on stage. So I haven't actually seen it, but I'm looking forward to watching that film. I know I'm kind of shocked I haven't seen it.
Let's not watch that sober, please.
No, let's get stoned.
Yeah, okay.
We're talking about stoner metal,
That's right.
man. So anyway, I'm going to play something. They are a 3-piece, by the way, which most of these bands are 4-piece because there's 2 guitars. This band, and I believe the last band was a 3-piece as well. But this is a 3-piece band, and I actually saw them in 2016 at the Drunken Unicorn here in Atlanta. It was packed out, and I've never seen so much sweat on stage as this band. These guys are like super fit. Mm-hmm. Shirtless, and you don't want to be up front because this is just like all hair and sweat.
This isn't Guar. This is funk.
No, these guys are just they just give it their all. They were all over the stage. And that's a small stage, but somehow they made it look like an arena, just the way they were moving around. I've never seen such an energetic band.
I love that.
They were so good. So the Truckfighters from Sweden. This is off of their album Universe. This is Mind Control.
That was nice. It was nice stoner metal. It was just, kind of middle of the road. Didn't really.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't weird enough for me.
I think if you saw it live, it would have probably a different impact on
No,
you.
absolutely. There's hundreds of bands out there that I would say the same thing about, that listening to them is one thing, but a live performance adds a lot more to it. But compared when you play them back to back with some of the other bands you selected there, it was kind of like, yeah, it was nice. It was all right.
All right. It could have been the song I picked. I don't know. But, I think if you actually saw them turn into fuzz monsters, it would probably, again, it would
See,
have a
once
different-
again, you add the theatrics and
Yeah.
you got my attention.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit you with my last pick here then. Let's see how we do with this one. And this is a band that I was thinking today of, when did I first hear this band? How did I get into them? And I remembered this place that we all used to go, and it was called MySpace.
Your space?
MySpace. Yeah, I actually heard of this band on MySpace way back in 2003 or 4, when you actually used to go to this thing called MySpace.
I don't think I ever had.
Were you never on MySpace?
I think I looked at it and started to build a page and went, yeah, no, I don't think
I'm sure
so.
there are people who don't even remember it.
I remember it, though.
Anyway, it was a big deal, and that's where I discovered this band and a lot of bands at that time. That was the kind of the place to go, because you weren't streaming music then. If you wanted to go listen to music, you either had to go to sites that specialized in indie artists basically posting their stuff, or you could go do torrents where you just basically steal music.
And who knows what you were downloading at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I discovered this band, Drunk Horse, and they're a band from Oakland, California, Drunk Horse, and they formed in '98. They put out a stream of albums, 4 full lengths and a bunch of EPs until, I believe, 2005-ish. I think the album that I'm going to play from is their last album that they released, and then they were done. And I think several of the guys went on to be in different bands and do other things. And as I was compiling my notes for this episode, I found out that they had recently gotten back together. So that's hopeful for me, because I never got to see this band, and I really dig them. This is the band that I mentioned has a little bit of a Thin Lizzy kind of connection. So there's definitely some cool guitar harmonies in a lot of their music. And they're a little more laid back than some of these others, not quite as fuzzy, a little more laid back, have a little bit of humor mixed in with their vocals and their concepts. But anyway, I thought it was a good way to end the episode. This is Drunk Horse from In Tongues, 2005, and the name of the song is Howard Phillips.
That had me thinking a little bit of early Iron Maiden before Bruce, where you had the dueling guitars, but it wasn't as
The Paul Di'Anno.
yeah, it wasn't as heavy
First two
metalish.
albums.
Yeah, it was more like that was real aggressive.
Yep.
A little bit of fuzz in that before they really ramped up the shtick in a good way, the stuff that I like. But still, it was really heavy, but not overly produced and operatic,
Right.
if that's a word.
Yeah. It's definitely that new wave, I guess new wave of British heavy metal
Yeah.
kind of influence on a stoner vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could hear that. That's cool. Yeah, so Drunk Horse, again, they have 4 full lengths. In Tongues is probably my favorite album that they put out, that particular song is off of. And again, they're playing again, so hopefully they'll tour somewhere other than just the West Coast. I think they've just been playing kind of local to San Francisco area, Oakland area currently, but hopefully they get it going again, and would love to see that band live. So that's what I have for you. I think it would be good for us to maybe dive into this a little bit later as well, because there's a whole lot more to explore.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got me listening to other songs by Monster Magnet. I love their radio hit they had, and you put a whole bunch of it on your iPod and let me listen to that, and that's how I got into it. The Queens of the Stone Age type stuff, yeah, that's obviously I like that, but there's a lot more when you delve into it that I haven't heard yet that I still like. So all this stuff is going in the right direction for me. Now, what would you say is the most unobscure stoner rock band? Like when I mentioned Monster Magnet, modern era, obviously you can say Black Sabbath, we're not, that was the inventor of it, but these days, like in the past 15, 20 years.
I think you hit it with, Monster Magnet, at one point in time, they really had kind of commercially peaked. So they were one of the big ones. I think Queens of the Stone Age, who, again, came out of the band Caius, it was really kind of the same group. They just kind of morphed into Queens of the Stone Age. In fact, the last Caius album, which wasn't really a proper album, it was called Queens of the Stone Age.
That's how they got the name.
So then it kind of morphed into Josh doing this other project. But I would say Josh Homme, just him, really is the biggest thing to come out of this, because all of the desert rock, there's all these desert rock session albums. It's a series of albums, CDs, whatever you want to call it. But they came out over the last 20 years, and he basically puts these things out. He invites all of his friends from all these bands to come, and they jam, basically, and they record it in the desert. And then they release kind of limited releases, and it's like this big collector's thing, these desert sessions. So if you have the desert session stuff, it's like a holy grail for this kind of music. But Josh Homme, just from those two groups alone, in what he's done with the genre, Queens are huge.
Yeah,
it's a big band, and I believe they've already had their commercial peak as well. Their last album was very far removed from this genre, but they're still going strong. I think Mastodon from here in Atlanta is another big band that I would say is pushing the genre forward. Some people may not consider them just stoner metal, but
no, they had more of a name in the heavy metal scene, but yeah. I could see them kind of riding the wave of both of those.
I think those three is who I would say. There are a ton of other bands, not quite at that level, that we can still play. So I think at some point we need to revisit
let's hit this again,
because this was a lot of fun, and it might be fun to maybe visit the Wall and some of the Pink Floyd covers that these groups have done. When you combine the Pink Floyd songs with these bands and how they interpret those songs, it's a really fun listen. So maybe we'll
I've enjoyed that thoroughly. Yes, that's on rotation too.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this episode.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back to you, man. I've soldiered on without you, but it's good to have you back.
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't leave me.
Till next time, this is the Old Smyrna Firehouse signing out.
Out.